Kiitos. That's the only Finnish word I'm able to say, so the rest is going to be in English. So thank you very much for having me here today. So I was briefed on saying a bit about how I see the future for data sharing and the retailers' demand for structured data. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in front of us, both to satisfy consumers, to drive efficiency, to sell more, but also to live up to the legislation and do the transformation in sustainability. My background, I think you've already been, I'm the chairman of Coop Trading. I'm interim CEO right now, but otherwise I'm chairman. I'm having a portfolio career where I'm working with retail, fast-moving consumer goods and tech companies. And I have a long history where I've been working for Unilever and the Grover and Coop, so in the retail space. When I'm looking at retail right now, I see 4 big challenges. And of course, we could find a lot more, but related to the topic we're talking about today, I think there's especially 4 things that are challenging the retailers. And the first one is that in Europe, we're working in mature markets. There's no or low growth, and in some areas, even negative growth in the markets. The population is not growing in Europe. We don't need to eat more. And basically, we're eating long-term, we're eating more in restaurants, we are eating takeaway. Right now, it's a bit going the other direction, but I think it's a short-term trend where the long-term trend is still that we're moving food from grocery retailing to restaurants and takeaways. So basically, we're fighting in a market where we don't have volume growth. Over the last, and that means basically the only way you can grow as a retailer is taking shares from your competitors, moving into new markets or taking shares in the countries where you are. And that creates a fierce competition. Over the last years, we've seen increases in prices, and you all know the story behind the increasing prices on food, both the growing population in the world, but also the crisis we have had with COVID and Ukraine. And moreover, we also see that changes in climate are making constraints on the food that we have available, and that means prices are going up. And consumers are very, very focused on prices. I think when you're looking at the consumer confidence index in most European countries, you would see that the consumers' confidence in the future are at the same level as when we were lowest after the financial crisis in 2007 and 8. We've been further down, but we're now back to the same level as the financial crisis. And that means the consumers don't really think that we're looking into a good future, and they're saving money. They are really conscious on how they're using their money. And in rich countries, as we are here in Nordic, but in most of Europe, it might not be the most important thing to save on food, but people are actually, that's the place they're saving most money. And the reason is, if you want to save on your housing, you actually need to move or something. That's quite difficult. And do I need one car less? And all those big things, they're actually difficult to save on. And after COVID, we still want to go out traveling as well. So there we don't want to save. And therefore, we end up saving on our food because it's easy. We can do that every day and we feel we do something good. And maybe it doesn't make a big difference, but that's our mindset. And therefore, we see that consumers are very, very price conscious. In most countries in Europe, we see also that discount is growing compared to supermarkets. Finland is a bit of a special place because you have such a small share of discount. Most countries' discount are much larger and growing much more. Norway, as an example, I think 80% of the volume in Norway are today going through discount stores. They're not hard discount, they're soft discount, and discount might actually, in that way, be a bit of an old-fashioned word because discount stores today are actually very nice supermarkets with a limited assortment, small stores. They are on every corner, they're easy to shop in, and you can actually get very good fresh food. But that's sort of the winning force. And in these times where price focus is so high, discounters are doing really, really well. The third thing that is really affecting is the supply chain disruptions. I think we've all experienced how the supply chain has been increasingly disrupted over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And it's of course coming from geopolitics, it's coming from COVID, that's over now, but we have blocking of the Suez Channel, and we have a lot of things that is disrupting. And also actually climate is disrupting. Yesterday I was in Valencia visiting an orange farmer, and because of the weather situation in Spain, the orange harvest is at 70% of last year this year. And Spain is the largest orange producer in the world with 8.8% of the total production of oranges. So what does that mean to the orange price of tomorrow? That means it goes up by somewhere between 20 and 30% because we lack oranges. And that's just one example. Go to Turkey. They had frozen they never have frozen in the beginning of the cherry season, but they did have 3 days with frost this year. And that means the cherry production in the world's largest cherry producer country in Turkey is at around 10% of what it was last year. And these disruptions are really making it also more difficult for us to operate in the market. The last one is climate transition, and climate transition, of course, is disrupting the supply chain, but it's also a driving force because consumers expect us to transform the public opinion, force us to transform our own consciousness does it, but also the legislation, of course. And that's really a driving force behind a lot of the things that we do at the retail space. When we're looking at retailers, what do they do? And of course, we could make a very long list, but we could also make it really simple. And I think basically there's 2 things, and I know there's 3 on the slide, but there's 2 things that retailers are preoccupied with right now. And the first thing is to drive efficiencies through the supply chain. Because there's no way you can keep your bottom line if you don't make your operation more efficient. If you're looking at the P&L of a retailer, you have 100%, that's what you get for the products. 70% of that is used to pay the goods. And if the goods are increasing more than the consumer is willing to pay, there's no way you can meet your bottom line without driving efficiencies out of your supply chain, your salaries, and your housing. And your housing, I mean, the rent you pay for your store, you can't do a lot to that unless you close your store and then you don't have the revenue. The personnel, yes, you can do things there, and the supply chain, you can do things there. And you need to do that in order to keep your profitability. So it's really, really high on the agenda for all retailers. And also because the discount is growing so much in the international scene, they come with a cheaper operating model. So they're also challenging the supermarkets, and therefore supermarkets really need to drive efficiencies in order to be competitive in the market. So I think that's the biggest driving force behind everything retailers do right now. The other big thing is, of course, creating differentiation and creating value for consumers. Because one thing is being able to have a good price, but it's also about what you deliver to the customers. And because there's so fierce competition, you don't have a growing market. It's really about what can I do for my consumers that the others don't do. How do I add more value? And that doesn't mean I can take a higher price because the competition is so fierce that the price is more or less given in the market. But if you then can deliver a bit more value, that's where you go. So that's the 2 big driving forces. And then, of course, you have the ESG part, which is really, really important and also doing a lot. And we'll come back to that later. So basically, I think you can read this, but you can also just, if I had a blackout, I would probably do that because I've said most of what is on the slide here. So basically, to drive efficiencies and to sell more to your customers and to be able to do the transition in ESG, you need data. And data is a really, really strong way to change your organization and change the supply chain. And I will give some examples of that. But before we go to the examples, one of my roles is also I'm sitting on the global board of GS1, where we're looking at what is the important things we're going to do the next 5 years to help the industries. And we have many industries in GS1, but retail and fast-moving consumer goods is still the biggest and the most important one. And here we're looking at what can data do, and we made a new strategy that goes to 2030. And the sort of the headline in that is powering trust in data for everyone, everywhere. So basically, the basic belief is that if we are good at having data that we can trust and that it easily available across the supply chain, then we can create a lot of value. But it needs standards, and it needs tools, and it needs that we work together between the suppliers, the farmers, and the retailers. And it's all the way. It's not isolated. It's really the whole value chain. We have 4 sort of focus areas in GS1. I know there's 5, but one of them is about healthcare, and I don't want to spend time on that today. So the first one is really making sure that it's very easy to get access to market and make product listings with good information, and I'll say a bit more about that later. It's about operational efficiencies. I think I've already introduced that subject. It's about consumer experiences. How do we enhance the value of our products, and how do we create more value for our customers? And then it's about the sustainability and circular economy. In GS1, we have some driving forces behind to deliver that. And it's about the trusted identification, that we always know that one product has one identifier and it works through the whole supply chain. Today, I mean, we have it today between the suppliers and the retailers because we have the barcode. But if you're going back the value chain, especially upstream to the whole farmers, we don't have that identification today. And I think it's one of the big opportunities, and I think you're going to talk about that also later today. It's also about, one thing is that we can identify the product, but another thing is that we have the bunch of data available for that product. And today, when at a retailer, we have between 200 and 300 data points for each product. And that means a lot that it's easy to get that into our systems, and it's also the right data. And then sharing data across the value chain. I think we can always look at the data from a sort of an individual perspective where we believe that I can optimize for my part or can I sell my data. But I think where we really create value is when we share the data across the value chain. And I think, of course, you can find examples where it's possible to sell data, but I think data is to an increasing part more also a thing where you enhance the value of what you sell. So, 4 things that we're driving in GS1, it's global standards and tools, and I think we have a lot of good standards, but GS1 also need to move to the next step. I think when we're looking, for example, at sustainability, I think there we actually need more standards. How do we exchange information on CO2 on product level? Nobody knows today. We have EU legislation coming in, and we have different solutions in different countries. I think that's a good example of where we need more standards. 2D barcodes I'm going to talk more about, so I'll leave that. And then registries, I think, is an important part because the registries are making it possible to have one data point that is shared globally across the nationalities. And the last one is local data services. So, if we're looking at some of the examples where we're working with it, then I think data services, I think that's the only point I want to make on this slide actually, is that data services where we share data between suppliers, farmers, retailers, I really believe that's important because we need to connect the identifier with all the data we need. And whether it's about sustainability and CO2 level, whether it's about the material that the packaging is made of, whether it's the dimensions in the supply chain, it's the best before date. The more data we can share in the supply chain, the more we can optimize it. On consumer experiences, I think we've all seen ways of using data to enhance the consumer experiences. And I think what we see in most markets is that consumers want, to an increasing extent, more transparency. They want to know more about the product. They want where is it produced, how is it produced, and they have individual questions on it as well. So the days where we can give all the information on the packaging is over. Of course, the packaging is still the most important thing for groceries because it's a low involvement product and there's a limit to how much time we want to use on it. But being able to supply even more transparency and information that we can have on the pack is very important. Safety is also high on the agenda, and it's not because people are afraid that they're going to die when they buy food here in the Western world, but safety is a lot of things, and it's allergies is one of the things that is growing a lot in our environment and where people want more information. We all know the QR code, and I think consumers are getting more and more used to using the QR code front of pack as a consumer, scan it, and we don't have to explain anymore how to do it, and we can easily imagine all the information we can give to the consumers here on ingredients, on nutrition, on allergies, on recipes, and I think that's a thing that we will see much more of. And here it's important really also that we can trust the data and we can collect it across platforms, because one thing is that one product can have a QR code and you can scan it and you get information on that product. But if I have allergy, then it's still, of course, I can scan that and I can get that information, but I think it's much more convenient when I have allergy that I have an app where I can say what I can take, and then if I scan a product, it just gives me a red or green flag whether I can take that product. Or it doesn't have to be allergy, it can also be that I just want to have another diet and I want to know whether that product fits into my diet. I think in that way we will see a lot of more engagement on product level. When we're coming to the operational efficiency, this is one of the big focus areas for the retailers and also for suppliers and farmers. How can we make our total supply chain more efficient? And I think, and I really hope that this is one of the areas where we're going to transform over the next couple of years. When we're looking today, there's not a lot of data that travels all the way from the farm to the store to the consumer. We do have examples, but the majority of the products, we lose it somewhere in the chain, and we're not able to understand the totality of that movement. And it's important in order to optimize, it's important in order to reduce food waste. It's important for traceability. When you're recalling a product, the more precise you can be, the cheaper it is. So there's a lot of areas where we can become better. And the inventory management is just really important in food, and the more fresh it is, the more important it is for us to have a live and a good overview of it. Today, a lot of the data that is used, in boxes. So the retailers are doing a lot of data mining, forecasting, also starting using AI on really finding the right balances. But it's isolated within their own supply chain. And when we're looking forward, some of the big gains that is going to be is really when we optimize across the full supply chain and really working with our inventories all the way from the farmer and to the store. And the good thing is when we optimize that, we will get more fresh products, we'll get less waste and higher margins, or being able to be competitive. So I think it's important. Digital trade, I think, is another thing that really makes it much more efficient. We still have too many people tapping in information around in the value chain. In this world, we should be able to exchange all our trade and information digitally and without too much human interaction. So that's going to be one of the important things as well. QR codes with a digital link from GS1. I think that's going to be one of the biggest transformation and also enablers to the operational efficiency. We're used to them on front of pack and as a consumer to get more information. It's moving back on pack now, next to the barcode, and the barcode will disappear over the next 10 years. in GS1, we have challenged all the retailers to be ready to scan a QR code in 2027. They're not going to be ready, all of them. But a lot of them are ready, and all of them are working on it, and they have a plan for it. Some need to change their scanners, some need to change their IT systems. And I think within the next 5 years, retailers will be ready to scan QR codes. And it's going to be a huge change, because that means the QR code with a digital link, QR code normally it's just a link to the internet, but in retail it doesn't work because it's too slow if we need to go to the internet every time we scan a code. So the QR code with a digital link from GS1 is a QR code that both has the information offline available as a barcode and can have a link to the internet. And that means the consumer can use it for all their purposes. We can use it both for scanning offline where we need that, but we have more information that can be in the barcode. We can also have the information of origin. We can have best before dates, production dates, serial numbers, and those kind of things embedded in the QR code. And that means we suddenly, when we have this, we can use it for our inventory management, the food waste traceability recall. And I'm going to give some concrete examples where that has been worked with for retailers and created a lot of value. Today we also have the challenge that when they're placed next to each other, when you scan it at the retailer, which code should it read? And of course it should always read the QR code first, and if it can't find a QR code, then it reads the barcode. So I think we'll have that transition in a period before all retailers can scan the QR codes, then we can remove the barcode. But we will have a transition period where we need both of them. Some examples is Woolworth in Australia. They implemented 2D codes on fresh meat and poultry. So basically scanning it through their supply chain. That means that they had a live view on what best before dates did they have where. And that means for a single store, they could see, all right, we have 50 poultries that is going out of date in 2 days. Should we just sit and wait as we used to do, or should we go out and look in the fridge? Because we know exactly where do we have products that are going out of date. Then we can mark it down, we can sell it, so we get revenue for it, and we don't get any food waste. It's much more efficient, because what you do at a retailer today is that you go out every day to your fridge, and then you start looking out, do I have any bad dates? And you always need to look at the bottom to see. So it actually takes quite a lot of time. You don't find all of it, and you don't necessarily find it in time as well, and that means you have to throw something out. So 44% reduction in food waste and 21% in increased efficiency was a result of this. That's very, very high results. I don't think we will be able to see that all over, but it's a good example. Menu Norway did the same, 2D barcodes of 14 of their meal products, 18% reduction in food waste. Tesco UK are right now actually rolling out a test where they have 10 own branded products, where they're focusing again on the core operational data, and they're focusing on also future uses on, for example, allergy sourcing and recycling. So I think this is for sure going to be a part of the future. And if you want to know more, you can scan that QR code and you'll come into GS1, who's made a paper where they're telling you much more about this, and also how to place the QR codes and those kind of things. Sustainability, you all know the train. We have a lot of regulation coming from EU that we have to live up to. So that's of course a driver of information that we as retailers need to have from suppliers to be able to live up to that. But in some instances, for example, when you're looking at CO2, I think the ideal world would be that we have LSCA analysis on all the products, and we will get that information shared via GS1 or somewhere else where we have the identifier, and then we get the LCA analysis, and then we can gather that for all products. But right now we're not there, so nobody does it. All retailers use sort of the averages for the categories and then report on that. But I think we need to prepare for the other thing, and it's going to take some years before we can sort of take in those data, but it is part of the future that we are able to share data on that. Good. That was a lot about efficiencies. Of course, data is also about selling more. And I don't go a lot into it, but AI dramatically increases the possibility for retailers to work more personalized with data. So retailers have for many years used data mining and early stages of artificial intelligence to try to make tailored offers for the consumers, but in reality it has been, you know, you have had 1,000 different consumers and then that's what you've used in standards. Now it can really be individualized. So it's used for individualizing offers on what you buy, and also not only what you bought last, but also what the AI can imagine that you're buying next. You can make personalized communication because you can suddenly make both pictures and videos that is individualized. For the online stores, you can make individualized stores that is sort of showing the products that you think is the best, in-store recommendation, payment, working across also different of the services in related categories like telephone banking and all the other areas. I think when you're looking at, for example, Carrefour's latest strategy, they're actually saying we are no longer a retail company, we're a technology company. And I think it's probably taking it a bit to the edge because they still have the majority of their business in selling groceries out of the stores. But it makes the point that it's a huge difference in the way forward. So, if I were you as suppliers, I would really work on assigning and verifying identities on all your products and work upstream. And I think you're going to talk more about that, so I don't want to say, but it's really important that we get upstream. It's really working on sharing complete up-to-date data on our products. There's all too many mistakes in the GS1 databases today, so we need to be much better at making sure that the data are right. Adopt 2D, it's not going to be tomorrow, but you need time to do it. It takes time before you will be ready, and you need to work with your IT systems and the way you're going to use all the data as well, and the retailers are going to do the same. ESG and regulatory areas, I think it says itself, and engage with retailers in selling more with your data as well.